So the story begins around a week ago, when I was already thinking of buying a second PC, not primarily for gaming purposes. And walking along the high street, I saw a pre-build on a CeX shop front. Usually pre-builds are crap, but this one, I bought it same day. It probably was one of the computers with this picture on the website. They were too lazy even to photograph the thing. The price tag suggested it had a Ryzen 5 3600 and an RTX 3060 for just £370. It's cheaper than the price of all the components inside it, even if most of them are the absolute cheapest option. I mean, even if this PC used CeX or Inevitable Party 9 Crackling Balls of Fire Novelty Outdoor Fireworks for Parties Bonfire Night Halloween 1 box, which is basically the same thing as a PSU, and the cheapest Chinese refab RTX 3060, that would still be a good value. But no, this amazing PC uses, yes, cheapest, but brand components. And of course it comes with a 2 years warranty, and CeX warranty policy tend to be pretty good. So today we are testing this amazing 370 quid machine from CeX in older games, newer games, competitive games, unusual games, all sorts of games. Hello and welcome back to Hardware Lab. So what is the exact list of components of this PC? GPU, the absolute cheapest RTX 3060 from Polit, with only one fan and completely locked TDP at 170 watts. Expect the extremely low frequencies and no overclocking. Well, at least it is a real 12GB 3060 and not a scam version with reduced VRAM buffer and speed. CPU, Ryzen 3600. Respectable old man, not yet retired. The only thing worth pointing out is that Ryzen 3600, like any other relatively weak CPU, may not achieve the highest results with an RTX 3060 due to Nvidia's higher CPU dependency or driver overhead. I'm glad though that this PC runs on 3060 and not 6600 XT or 6650 XT. They are just significantly worse at being a good GPUs due to poor memory subsystem. Motherboard Asus Prime B450 Plus. While I was glad to find the B450 board inside, overall it's horrible. Getting fixed CPU voltage on this board is impossible. The VRM and radiator on it is just worse than on a previous gen Prime B350 Plus. But hey, it could be some A320 ASRock, so it's okay. RAM, pretty average DDR4 kit. Two 8GB modules from Corsair with an XMP 3000 CL1819-1938. PSU, Corsair CV450. The bad thing about it, I won't have any fireworks for the bonfire night. The good, this PC might work for slightly longer than the latest rods. But seriously, it's not a bad PSU. The budget one, with only 430 watts on 12V output, but it's sort of alright for this build. Upgradability is seriously limited by the power it can supply, but for 370 quid, not a big deal. Aside from all this, the PC is just well assembled in general, with decent cable management. It even includes a Wi-Fi module, but unfortunately no antennas for it, so I was using my own Wi-Fi. Oh, and it came with a legally purchased Windows 11. So it's quite a decent build for the price, and I was really surprised not to see any catches or obvious problems. Man, even the XMP profile for RAM was enabled by default. So it is literally a plug-and-play experience. I just bought this machine, plugged that in, and started downloading games for benchmarks, well, aside from connecting my own Wi-Fi. For this test section, everything remained in stock. I did not change anything in BIOS or in Afterburner, so this is the experience you would get if you bought this PC for 370 quid. Most of the games were tested on two different settings, one for better quality and one for better performance. All the benchmarks were captured via external capture card Elgato 4K-X and recorded using M1 MacBook Air. The performance metrics were measured by MSI Afterburner. PS2 performance settings were tweaked to be CPU limited and achieve maximum possible FPS for the best competitiveness. The quality settings are just everything maxed out. Surprisingly, the Polyd RTX 3060 drops frequency below 1900 MHz at times on quality settings, even though it's not fully bottlenecked the system. I wonder what will happen in more demanding games. Overall though, the game runs absolutely fine. Yes, 3060 can very rarely drop under 60 FPS when maxed out, but I highly doubt you will play this game with maximum settings in the first place. On the performance settings, even the 0.1% low is noticeably above 60, which I didn't really expect from Ryzen 3600 with these RAMs XMP. PUBG is known for stuttering, and stutters are there on both competitive and ultra settings, which results in a pretty poor 0.1% minimum for competitive gameplay. RAM with a pretty mid XMP doesn't help. The cheapest RTX 3060 also surprises with an incredibly low frequency, dropping at times all the way to 1800 MHz. However, considering the technical issues of the game itself, and the price of this computer, the performance is still pretty impressive. The Finals is a competitive game built on Unreal Engine 5, which is way superior engine than Unreal Engine 4 used in PUBG. It runs surprisingly well, with a pretty low but consistent frame rate. Yes, this game is GPU heavy, so we are using DLSS quality rather than native rendering in both modes. But the visuals are absolutely worth it. The quality mode, for instance, uses a dynamic ray tracing GI. Not bad at all. Rainbow Six Siege is a relatively old game, but the one without major technical issues. It runs perfectly fine on this system, even at maxed out settings and native resolution. Death Stranding isn't a game where high frame rate is necessary, however RTX 3060 and Ryzen 3600 can deliver it even in native Quad HD with no issues. The game is pretty old but still looks good in terms of visuals. It's sad though that there are no settings to push the graphics even further. Yeah, remember kids, you did not develop an open world game on the stock Unreal Engine 4. This game is just unplayable on the mid-range hardware, especially without 3600 MHz RAM. The quality mode here aims at range 40 to 60 with ray tracing and the performance at 60+. The GPU can provide it with no issues. The CPU with 3000 MHz RAM cannot. Ray tracing mode is especially horrible. It was very hard to complete the test run on a bike without bumping into something. 0.1% in both modes are single digits. The Crew Motorfest runs absolutely fine, hitting the game's 60 FPS log with some internal scaler from 75%, which is higher than DLSS quality, and high settings. Pushing everything to Ultra and disabling the scaler will easily achieve the range between 40 and 60. Our favorite voxel destruction game runs as smooth as possible at maxed out settings. Unfortunately, even the medium crowd density doesn't help Ryzen 3600 to hold 60 FPS at the most demanding location in Cyberpunk. Not with this RAM at least. Enabling ray tracing in quality mode keeps performance CPU bound and drops the performance even further, all the way down to low 40s. If your CPU can handle 60 in Cyberpunk, it won't handle 60 in Starfield either. We tried to aim at 40 to 60 range in quality mode and 60 plus at performance, but in fact CPU only provides not so stable 40, so there is almost no difference between the modes, at least in New Atlantis. I wonder if tuning the RAM and CPU can improve this. we decided to test only one mode in Metro Enhanced because while it drops significantly under 60, it only does so in the most demanding bit of the benchmark, so I wouldn't mind completing the game like this. What's weird is that in the end of the benchmark section, it looks like the game is slightly CPU bottlenecked. If you ask me, it absolutely shouldn't happen here, so I don't know. Maybe this RAM's XMP is that bad. Remember what we saw in Starfield and Cyberpunk? Ah yeah, the most photorealistic looking game. It was tested in the forest, the most demanding location, and it is extremely demanding. The quality mode here is set to target 30 plus FPS and the performance 40 to 60 range. It does look noticeably worse though. It also uses FSR performance rather than quality and sort of breaks the illusion that you are watching a real video. I should add that other maps run way better, like the Russian building is running at 40 plus in quality mode. Let me first ask women to skip this test. You know, the devs said they aim their game at a real testosterone masculine giga chads and no women are allowed. Oops, sorry, the wrong picture. Anyway, Wukong is a GPU demanding game and achieving 60 is only possible with DLSS performance and medium settings. In my 40 to 60 range VRR monitor owner opinion, the quality mode is way better. It handles 40 plus FPS on high settings with DLSS quality. Hellblade 2 has an Alan Wake syndrome, i.e. it doesn't scale down well, doesn't provide low enough options. Because of that, achieving 60 was only possible at low with high textures and DLSS balanced. The game doesn't look bad at that settings, and I would argue it would be better if we could go below low but remain at DLSS quality. The quality preset, aiming at 40 to 60 range, uses DLSS quality and medium settings with high textures. It looks and runs great. As usual for Nvidia GPUs in this game, vegetation massively drops performance. So the performance mode fails to achieve 60 despite using DLSS balanced. The equality mode also fails at achieving 40, but honestly, I wouldn't mind. It's a puzzle game after all, the visuals here are way more important than performance, and DLSS quality with higher GI looks way better. The new Life is Strange features surprisingly great visuals and is really demanding. Both modes use some internal scaler from approximately 66%. I don't know exactly because this wonderful scaler doesn't tell me. The performance mode also uses 90% scaler for the post-processing effects. The rest of settings are a mix of medium and high on performance and high and cinematic on quality, plus cinematic textures for both modes. And they do their job. Performance is okay at achieving 60+, and quality doesn't drop under 40, at least in this pretty demanding testing scene. I am worried that Alan Wake syndrome became that common. Silent Hill 2 uses around medium settings and DLSS performance for performance mode, with quality using high plus DLSS quality. Unfortunately, even dropping settings to low doesn't bring the performance mode to 60 FPS, and quality can do for a solid log 30, aka cinematic experience. None of this is going to save you from traversal stars though. Even the PS5 was not saved. Talking about PS5, this game does not have a 60 FPS mode on it. I just thought it's cool that this PC kinda has. It can drop under 60, but it's worth the visuals. It uses DLSS quality and a mix of medium and high settings with ultra textures. The quality mode uses the same DLSS preset, but settings mixed with high and ultra plus ray tracing enabled. God of War Ragnarok runs maxed out in both modes, with the only difference performance uses DLSS quality and quality runs at native DLAA. A great result, but it's sad that the game doesn't feature any advanced options that would improve visuals over the console version. The game settings at Star Wars Outlaws are already pretty low in the only tested mode with DLSS balanced. I didn't really want to go much further down to achieve 60. I tried, but it didn't feel like the right thing to do. At medium-ish settings, the ratio between quality and performance is okay, and the game can be played at luck 30. If you absolutely can't handle it, it is possible to push it to 40s, but do not expect 60. Pretty sad, considering in one of the videos we've said the game might be a good example of ray tracing running fine on RTX 3060. It really isn't. Overall, I don't know how to feel about this machine's gaming performance. On one hand, it's absolute best value for money. For £370 I bought a machine that can run any modern game in a reasonable quality. I wasn't buying it specifically for gaming purposes, but it is impressive. This is a real RTX 3060 plus R5 3600 build with normal 12GB version of the GPU and even RAM with enabled XMP out of the box. It's well assembled and generally nice. On the other hand, it is probably one of the lower tier RTX 3060 plus Ryzen 3600 builds. The GPU is a cheaper Polit one, so it drops clocks. The CPU can't show what it is really capable of because of the RAM, and even though the PSU is unlikely to explode and take all the other components with itself to hell, doesn't leave much room to upgrade the hardware and improve things. However, some manual tuning and tweaking can still be done, and if there is room for improvement, why not use it? So this is what I've done. Ryzen 5 3600 was fixed at 4.2 GHz frequency with unknown voltage. Yes, this motherboard only allows you to use the offset, and when you set it to some value, it adjusts it for whatever reason. The voltage can either be up to 20 mV lower or higher than what you set it to be, and it depends on God knows what, and different software reports different values. The RAM was overclocked to 3600 MHz. Achieving higher frequency was not possible because, well, Ryzen 3600 did not allow. The timings remained at CL1819-1938. I hoped for something better, but it's still a significant improvement from what was there out of the box. The Polit RTX 3060, while not being technically overclockable because of the fully locked TDP limit, achieved at least a minimum of 2 GHz in all games by undervolting in the curve editor. I also slightly overclocked the VRAM and increased the fan speed curve by a bit, just in case, to definitely avoid any throttling. So in theory, all this tuning, while not achieving any top tier results, should give us some performance benefits and make this build slightly more in line with an average Ryzen 3600 plus RTX 3060 build. Let's rerun some of the games that were not running that well and check out the improvements. Counter-Strike 2 runs slightly better now in both modes. Unfortunately, the drop under 60 in quality mode is still there. PUBG runs better after tuning, all the starters are reduced and the performance is generally higher. However, 0.1 lows are still far from perfect. Just wow! After tuning, the 0.1 lows increased 2 to 3 times in this game. They are no longer single digits. And you know what? Driving the bike is now doable, even with ray tracing. I mean, it is still extremely painful, but I managed not to hit anything. And without RT, the game is now sort of playable? Or semi-playable? It's still awful. Gotham Knights performs awful, even on the 5700X 3D, but just look at how much better it is now. I hoped for way more improvement from Cyberpunk 2077, especially after testing Gotham Knights. But come on, 60 FPS without ray tracing is almost there. And it is the most demanding location in the game, so performance mode now offers 60 almost throughout the game. So while not perfect, the game now runs better. Unlike Cyberpunk, Starfield is still far from 60 FPS, at least in New Atlantis. But remember how FPS was in the mid-40s out of the box? Well, now is in the mid-50s, a huge improvement, especially for those with VRR. We can also see how the quality mode is now improved, and in fact it is now mostly GPU bottlenecked, but the GPU performance has increased as well. Metro was and is mostly GPU bound, so we are looking at a significantly increased GPU performance in this game. It still drops to 40s in the most demanding bit of the benchmark, but definitely not as far as it did. There is no tuning that can fix the massive FPS drop in the forest, but the performance is slightly improved. Moreover, the quality mode is now averaged over 60 FPS, not bad at all. After tuning, the performance mode is almost there. So close to 60 FPS, but not quite. The quality mode on the other hand is now there, within the targeted 40 to 60 range. I was really surprised how much of a difference a 10% GPU clock boost and a slight VRAM boost makes. The boost is significantly greater than 10%. I wonder why. I wouldn't say that tweaking made me feel that I'm using a completely different machine, but there is definitely an improvement, and quite a huge in some cases like Starfield and Silent Hill. I don't really know what exactly you're supposed to learn from this video. Maybe that buying a whole assembled PC is trash, but not always. I mean, yeah, it can be a good thing that before building a PC, you just check what CeX or some other stores currently have in stock for your budget. There may be some good deals like this one, and it is not like you can't return them if you find that the components are trash. Maybe, if you are not really into hardware and somehow ended up watching this, check out your computer. If you have an assembled machine that you bought some time ago, you can spend a few evenings, search how stuff is done and improve its performance like I did in this video. Anyway, I'm glad with what I bought, I shared it with you, and my job here is done. So, goodbye, and as usual, stay up to date with HL.